Tutankhamun was one of the most well-known pharaohs of ancient Egypt. He ruled an empire and was technically the most powerful person in the civilization. Yet, he was only a child. He became pharaoh at the age of 9 and lived only to the short age of 18. He was forced into the role of an adult while still possessing the emotional maturity of a child. In a way, many of us can relate to that. The ravages of time oppress us, forcing us to age and changing the seasons and stages of our lives, leaving us with no choice but to follow. Sometimes, it feels like our emotions are left behind. We feel like children, but are forced to live and perform the roles of adults. We pretend to be strong when we aren't, and bottle up our feelings. As kids, we all have an idea of what an adult should look and act like. At 30, they should know about taxes, cars, work, bills, and raising a family. At 50, they should know how to handle messy life problems and personal crises. At 70, they should be wise, with stories to amuse younger generations, and not worry about the things that make young people panic. But even if we reach those ages, it's not guaranteed that we'll feel like adults. Our age might sound serious, our life might seem complete, yet the feeling of adulthood can still be missing. Sometimes, it feels as if we might die of old age without ever truly becoming adults. First of all, what exactly is an adult anyway? Well, there are many ways to answer this question. Biologically, you reach adulthood between 18 and 25, when your body is fully mature in terms of hormones and physical development, and capable of sexual reproduction. However, the brain is still developing during these years and may not be fully mature, continuing to grow until around 30. Then, there is social adulthood, defined by what we do in society. In the past, adulthood was marked by completing education, leaving one's family of origin, starting work, getting married, and becoming a parent. Because it's subjective and social, some people may reach adulthood earlier than others. Over time, however, these definitions have changed, which is why social scientists often see adulthood as socially constructed. Then, there's perceived adulthood, the internal sense of whether one is truly an adult or not. This may happen because adulthood often feels surprisingly similar to teenage years. In school, you go at a certain time in the morning and sit at your desk to do your tasks. At work, it's much the same. The only difference is the place. Some jobs, however, like being a nurse or other non-school structured jobs, feel completely different from that routine. But even then, there's often that persistent feeling that you're not really an adult, no matter what you do. In contrast, there's a visible distinction between childhood and the teen years, thanks to puberty. Your voice changes, hair grows in unexpected places, your personality and interests shift, and you experience feelings you've never felt before, whether you like it or not. The transition from the teen years to adulthood, however, is much subtler. Many of your teenage interests may remain, and the other changes are less visible, creating the illusion that we don't change at all. And that's what makes it tricky. It's just a feeling. It's not something physical you can simply achieve. You can do everything you're supposed to do and still not feel like an adult. In the end, it's more about a feeling problem than a being problem. Why do we feel this delayed adulthood? Well, one reason might be that we grew up with a certain vision of what an adult should be. And when our reality doesn't match that vision, we feel like we haven't quite arrived, like something is missing. This gap between being and feeling makes us waiting for the perfect job, the perfect apartment, the perfect moment, all while feeling stuck in a place we don't want to be. This discordance becomes even sharper when we look at the unconventional careers we have access to today, like musicians, writers, humanitarian workers, and so many others. It makes our early adult years feel like an endless masquerade, where we wear the costume of adulthood but feel like children underneath, just trying to survive. We want to cry when the boss scolds us. We wish our parents could still shield us from every cruel person we meet, and we secretly dream of an escape from the crushing weight and expectations of the world. Jeffrey Arnett, a professor of psychology, noticed this very shift. He argued that the way our economy is structured has delayed the milestones of adulthood. When society moved from manufacturing to a knowledge-based economy, more people were required to spend longer years in school, and with longer education came delayed careers, delayed marriages, and delayed parenthood. There's also less pressure to grow up as people are enjoying their youth. They feel more in control of their lives and want to explore before they settle down. Their lives are filled with experiments, with love, with work, with who they want to be. And not all of it has to end with marriage or children. Women are devoting more years to education and careers, and the youth movement has stretched youth itself into a longer, brighter season. It feels like an age of possibilities, where young people look toward the future with optimism. They have enough resources to shape their lives the way they want, free from the need to provide for a family, and that freedom lets them delay commitment just a little longer. Maybe one doesn't want to be an adult because it often feels like a cage, a prison. Once you reach a certain age, so many possibilities slip away. You can no longer change your career path so easily. You can no longer be an astronaut or a doctor or anything with an age limit. Maybe refusing to grow up is a quiet form of denial, a way to push back against the truth that we're getting older and that our options and freedom are slowly becoming narrower and narrower. Eventually, denial fades, the cage stays, but we learn to live within it. Arnett suggests that by the time we reach our mid-30s or 40s, we usually start to feel like established adults. With that acceptance comes reality. Our identities feel more solid, job prospects are not as open as before, and our focus shifts toward others rather than just ourselves. But it is not all bad. By then, we often have better habits, a sharper mind, and a level of expertise in our fields that we did not have before. And somewhere in all that, we might even find a quiet kind of happiness. But even with all that, there's still a part of me that refuses to fully grow up. Even as an adult, I still love watching cartoons. Over the Garden Wall, Gravity Falls, Regular Show. They feel so pleasant and cozy, a soft contrast to the cold world of adulthood. It feels natural to hold on to the few things that keep me warm. I don't want to let them go. They're my escape from the adult world, a place I can return to whenever I need a warm embrace from the chaos of reality. I think one of the few reasons we love those shows is that they remind us of childhood, the joy, the fun, the feeling of being adventurous when the world still felt full of mystery, and our responsibilities were so much lighter. They're also ridiculous, silly, and funny, which makes them even more comforting. Lately, I've found another source of that same cozy feeling, cozy horror games. I know I'm not the only one who feels this way. Plenty of adults enjoy media aimed at kids, so much so that there's even a word for it, kidults. For many, it's a way to escape the stress and seriousness of adult life, especially in today's fast-paced world. One of the most famous examples is Michael Jackson, who openly said he didn't want to grow up. He collected arcade games and sci-fi memorabilia, loved Peter Pan, and even turned part of his property into a theme park he called Neverland Ranch. Sometimes, I just want to be treated like a child again. I want to feel innocent. I want someone to pat me on the head when I do something good. I want to run away from all the responsibilities waiting for me. And I want to feel pure again. Honestly, I don't know if that's normal or if I'm just absolutely deranged and broken in the head. But hey, as long as it's not ruining my life, I'm okay with it. However, who can really blame us for wanting to go back to our childhood? It's not wrong, and if we do it mindfully, it's not a problem. We should have the freedom to retreat into our comfort worlds, no matter what society thinks, as long as it isn't harming anyone or crossing moral lines. That said, when the desire to never grow up takes over completely, that's when it becomes unhealthy. In popular psychology, there's a term called Peter Pan syndrome, describing people who have reached adulthood but cannot face the responsibilities that come with it. Their emotional lives remain frozen in adolescence. Carl Jung described such people as living a provisional life, as if the life they have now is only temporary, not the real life they believe they deserve. They hold on to the fantasy that one day, in the future, the real thing will finally arrive. Until then, they see their present reality as a set of bars, a cage, a prison that keeps them from the life they think they should be living. In a way, this is something I really struggle with. I know I have to enjoy and be grateful for the present moment, but it can be difficult. Life isn't meant to be a string of grand moments, and expecting it to be is just unrealistic. I once finally ticked off something I had wanted for years. At first, I felt happy, but the feeling faded, and I went back to feeling normal again. I am truly grateful it happened, but I can't expect to be happy all the time. It's impossible, and that's okay. I am learning to be more grateful and change my expectations about life. For the most part, life feels normal. It has its highs and lows, sure, but most of the time, you'll just feel normal. Chances are, the life you feel today, the everyday rhythm you're experiencing right now, is the kind of life you'll live for a long time. And you'll feel normal, not particularly happy, not especially sad, just normal. And normal is good, so sprinkle in little pleasures in your everyday life and plan some beautiful moments along the way for special occasions. And just be grateful for what you have while slowly working toward your goals. We can't expect too much from life, and I guess that's okay, because life isn't always kind to everyone. In many parts of the world, some people aren't even of mature age, yet are forced to take on adult responsibilities. They care for their siblings, find food, stay independent, and tend to themselves. Some of them are still just kids, but they are born into circumstances that force them to grow up too quickly. Poverty, war, or instability shaping how they live and behave. Their childhoods look nothing like ours, even though they may crave the same joys we once did. In more privileged parts of the world, forced adulthood takes on a different form. Since maturity is something to be aspired to, many people try to look and act like adults, sometimes because they must, and sometimes by choice. Unlike those who are forced into adulthood for survival, this version is often performative. People might act more mature during a job interview, speak more carefully in a meeting, or carry themselves with greater seriousness at a funeral. It's not that they've truly become adults in that moment, but rather that they're playing the role expected of them. Now, however, we see many people doing the opposite, acting less mature than their age would suggest. Just watch a typical reality TV show, observe political behavior, scroll through social media, or even listen to conversations in bars and restaurants. These people may look like adults, but they're anything but mature. They're egoistic, entitled, and irresponsible, delighting in other people's flaws and sufferings. They whine and resent, throw tantrums, show callousness toward others, and feel slighted when their specialness isn't celebrated. Here, we realize that not everyone will be mature, and in a way, it's a privilege to be one. So, if you have the chance to be an adult, to make wise decisions, to make sacrifices that benefit your loved ones, you should take that opportunity and do the best with that gift. The years you've lived should be a sign of how much experience and knowledge you've accumulated. But the world isn't always like that. Some people never get to experience all the moments that would teach them, and even if they do, they might not learn from them. Growth isn't always linear, and yet, no matter how grown up we think we are, life reminds us that adulthood isn't the final destination. Over time, the maturity we fought to build melts into something softer, and we meet the child we once were again. After a certain time of being an adult, we might really feel like one. Yet, the nature of our childlike state always finds a way to return. When we're older, not only are our bodies changing, but also our mental and emotional states. With age, we may become increasingly childlike, as if the children who were locked away during adulthood came back. We become more and more dependent, playful, and simple. We desire comfort and care, and we seek attention. These behaviors may serve as a coping mechanism, but because of their childlike traits, they're often described as the second childhood. Just like a child, when we reach old age, we're exempted from the expectations of society. A child can do many things and get away with it. Broke a vase, people say, he's just a child. Cried in public, he's just a kid. Anyway, that's how we treat the elderly. Yet, this can also be liberating. Older people are no longer expected to carry the burdens we impose on the young. They don't have to contribute to the economy, sell themselves to others, impress people, or offer praise just to belong. To younger people, this might feel like having more worth in the world, but it comes at the cost of hiding their truest selves. So, maybe it is true that old age can free us from what thinkers like Anne-Thérèse de Lambert once called the tyranny of opinion. Not only does our inner child come out, but it can also interact with other children. Grandparents, finally freed from their economic responsibility and with their newly found freedom, can take care of and play with children, especially when their parents are busy. This might even play a vital role in human evolution. In fact, it is called the grandmother hypothesis. When these two age periods interact, the transmission of human culture happens, and they allow exploration for the young child. We can also see this in animals like orcas and Siberian jays. Despite the similarities between the elders and children, they're still adults. So, seeing them as children can be condescending, even if they behave like one. Winston Churchill leaned on a cane while defending his country against Hitler, and Roosevelt led the world from a wheelchair. No one in their right mind would ever call them children. Sure, they may lash out and yell when they're uncomfortable or in pain, but the reason behind that is they may have communication issues and might not be able to explain how they feel. We need to do our best to understand them, because eventually we're heading in the same direction. However, in our modern world, childcare and elder care workers are often seen as low status, and both childcare and elder care facilities are underfunded. We also isolate older people from children, and even from the rest of us, creating a rift where we struggle to understand one another. We need to stop valuing people based on their usefulness and instead strive to connect their generations, bringing the life cycle back together. Our bodies will always get older, and we will reach adulthood in some way. But maturity is never guaranteed. The definition of adulthood, like the human body, grows and shifts with humanity and the changing of eras, and we may never fully grasp it. Yet, no matter the time or place, maturity will always be treasured. Being mature does not mean your inner child is gone. It simply goes into hiding, resurfaces from time to time, and eventually remains when the last chapter of our lives arrives. So, do not be afraid of your inner child. It tugs at your sleeve, reminding you that you are still capable of change, still deserving of hope and adventure, and encouraging you to have a little more fun along the way. Hey everyone, thanks so much for watching until the end. The past few weeks were pretty crazy. I had to do 4 presentations at work, then I took a 12-day break and went home. Being home was fun, and as I get older, I'm starting to notice and appreciate the things I used to take for granted when I was younger. At the same time, it was heartbreaking. I visited a relative who has cancer, and it was tough seeing her in so much pain. I'll do my best to help her and hopefully ease her suffering. Anyway, if you enjoy my content, consider supporting me on Patreon, where I post bonus material like this video about why we're afraid of ghosts, this one on premature burial, or our hilarious attempt at predicting the future. Since I don't have any more presentations coming up soon, I'll be using my time to make more videos. So, see you soon and have a great week.